The brush is basically here, in my hand here is a oil painting brush or acrylic. Here is more of a watercolor brush. Now, a couple things. First off, look how long this is versus this. A lot of oil painting is done standing up. So you can imagine if I'm standing up in front of an easel, the balance is important. So it should be longer, right? Also, sometimes you paint like that, where you're holding it and sort of like jabbing at it if you're stepping far. A lot of watercolor painting is done sitting and or like kind of, when you're traveling. So you don't really need to have that much length. Probably more importantly, though, is the bristles. Because when you're doing oil painting or acrylic, you're kind of picking up the paint, and the paint is usually much thicker, and you're sort of directly placing it on. You're sort of like really pushing it onto the surface, the canvas or the panel. With watercolor, it's more of a charge and a flow. So for example, if I'm using watercolor with a reservoir of color, what I'll do is I have the tip of the brush and then I have the belly of the brush, and the color and the water is basically sort of charging up my bristles. And so what ends up happening is that I have this flow, and it can be quite long. I'm going to switch to the paint here. You guys could do this along too if you'd like. I want to kind of show how I talk about this reservoir of color. So with the reservoir of color, what I mean is I'm just picking up a red. It could be any color you'd like. I pick up a lot of color and I pick up a lot of water, just like the Hockney quote, wet colors and water. And so now my brush is fully charged. And so again, with that, I'm able to do this very long flow in my stroke there. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, if you try it for yourself, if you charge up your brush with a lot of color and also a lot of water. When I say a lot of water, what I'm doing is I'm sort of like almost like scooping up the water with my brush and putting it here on my palette. And when I do that, what I'm doing is I'm sort of imagine that these are tubes of paint and not just like pans. It's almost like I'm squeezing out a little bit of the paint here and adding it with the water. So that's my reservoir of color. And that's I use that word all the time. Reservoir, because I hope that's something that you think of when you're mixing your color on your palette. Now, if I just go ahead and start doing strokes to discharge and release the paint from my brush, I can go forever. I could go for a very long time because there's just so much of a charge in the bristles. And that's really something that is important to be mindful of. It's not like we're drawing with a pen or painting with oil paint, where it's sort of like you constantly have to sort of put down something that you pick up. Here you have to return to your palette, but you can go for quite a long time with what's inside of your brush. Also, I'm going to switch now. So this is a round brush. This is a flat brush. The bristles will sometimes be made with animal hair, like the tail of like a marten or a squirrel, and so they have this a high level of absorbency, and they have this bounce. So you're able to get a variety of strokes. And so a lot of times with watercolor, you can do quite a lot with even large brushes. So for example, you can go, and this is something that you could try if you have a larger brush with you, you can try to vary the stroke size, go from like a thin stroke to a long stroke to a wide stroke, to really play with the versatility of the brush. So this is something that I do, and I insist that folks who are practicing watercolor do with their own brushes as much as possible, because watercolor, again, as a really versatile medium, if you have just one or two brushes in your backpack, or if you just are, deciding to work on a painting, but you're able to push the brush to do all kinds of different effects, whether it's really small lines or wide lines, then you could do an entire painting with just one, decent sized brush. So again, that's the versatility that you have there. I said that there are brushes that are made with just animal hair, but of course there are synthetic brushes, like Etcher's brushes are all, they're synthetic, they're incredible. They have that bounce and that charge. So you're able to, you're able to have that flow. That's what we're talking about here. Take advantage of the watery quality of the paint, of the fluid quality of the paint. So that's why I'm making such a big deal about like the charge and the reservoir and the water, the nature of the material itself.